Right, I'll start. You want me to start?
So, just an overview, what do you think of NDIS, like dealing with it?
There's good points and bad points. So there's positives and negatives that have come from the NDIS and how it's impacted on the participants and their families. It's different to the previous funding for service providers because of the amount of the different documentation, the different requirements. It's a lot of bureaucracy involved, so there can be a lot of barriers in regards to timeframes when plans are coming back, requirements that they want around therapy assessments and stuff like that. So that's a bit frustrating. So if you're asking what I think of the NDIS, there can be some frustrations, but there's also a lot of good things around it as well. It's just, I think it's inconsistent because it's based on people's decisions. You find inconsistencies in outcomes. So there's a few thoughts, I suppose, initially. Is that okay?
Yeah. So
there's more questions anyway. So
just following up, when you mentioned more documents to lodge, is there, compared to the old one to the new one, is there more? Or?
Yeah. So before, when block funding was given, the person was given funding, and it was still allocated to a provider, but there was not as much requirement for progress reports, evidence around the ratio of the staff, for example. So before, it was a negotiation around, say, one-on-one staffing, for example, with regards to behaviours. We negotiate with the parents, and also if you need to request more funding, you did need to provide documentation, but it was kind of like, once you got it, that's okay, they've got it, so one-on-one funding. But now with the NDIS, it's every year. Like evidence has to be put through. So constantly you have to provide that evidence, as opposed to before, you maybe fight for it once, and then generally that was okay.
Yeah.
And now it's every year.
So basically a review every year on the patient.
There's no stability for the guys. That's toned out. It's not like there's no stability because each time their funding comes back, it might not be enough.
So have you seen, for example, person A for 1 year, and then next year you want to see them again, basically? Or
you'll see them again, but you have to fight all over again for the funding.
Okay.
Like it might be reduced. So if someone gets one-on-one, so someone's coming into the scheme for the first time and they used to have one-on-one, the first plan maybe was underfunded. We fight for, advocate for more funding because of these reasons. They give it to us. The next year, they don't give it to us again. So it's back and forth, sometimes for families, which is very insecure. There's a lot, because they're involved more, they have...
So the families also have to go through the same process.
Yeah, so it's not just providers fighting and worrying about it, the families are have more worries now than they used to, even if there's insufficient funding.
Yeah.
If they had more funding and the extra supports, because that's what the NDIS is given for some people, and more equipment and all that sort of thing, then that's fine. More therapies, that's fine. But for the people that are impacted for insufficient funding, there's that, not constant, but every year it's like, oh, will I get the same right funding again? Will I not? Do I have to do a review? So there's uncertainty.
Do you think the application takes longer now, or compared to block funding? Which one was it?
Longer, because in block funding they gave it, and when they left school, or if they were older and they were giving a package, that was it. You got your funding, same funding every year. It went out a little bit at a time with staff pay rates increasing, like they funding would then increase a little bit, but it wasn't applying to new things every year. It was just given and that's it. The downside of that funding was that was it. No more, no extras, I suppose. But now you've got extras, but no certainty.
Yeah.
So what are some personal issues that you have dealt with in the NDIS? Like, for example, you and a patient have dealt with?
Unfortunately, a common issue is people running out of funding and having to stay home. So people having supports in place, routines in place, families who work, and they run out of funding. So they've got funding from their plan, which is insufficient. They've lodged a review to try and get more funding, but that review never comes back. Because of time processing with the NDIS, it's just taking a long time. They run out of money, and providers now, no money, there's no guarantees to get paid, they have to cancel service. So one main issue, big impact, is that if that has happened to families, which it has, over maybe a dozen of my people have been affected over the last 2 years maybe. That's a more recent problem. In the beginning it wasn't happening so much, but now they're kind of drawing back a bit on funding, so it's happened more recently. But that's a big problem, where people are running out of funding and having to stay home. just given the wrong funding and the stress and worry of it all is a problem. Having to constantly, the emotional toll of having to constantly advocate and go over the same story. They have to spill out their hearts, their stories, their histories every year to someone new. There's very little consistency with the people that you're talking to. So there's an NDIS body, and then there's a Uniting, which is the company which is contracted to actually come and meet with the families. They're like a middleman.
Mm-hmm.
So that person is called a local area coordinator, and they are the person that they are giving all this information to normally. Some people get actual NDIS planners, but it's more rare. So generally it's these LACs, we call them, and the turnover is quite high for that role, unfortunately. So there's a little inconsistency, so there's not much consistency, so the families are having to retell their story every year, fight every year. It's going to go out again.
Oh, it's still on the recording. You're on the screen.
Oh, okay, no.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that emotional toll as well is a problem. So.
Have you seen someone that have gotten from 1 year and then the next year they didn't get it?
Yes, not at all. It's not like they don't get it at all. Once they're in the scheme, they get a plan, and plan has funding in it. It's that they might have not enough funding.
Okay.
So I've had reduced funding. So some are just reduced a little bit, say 20% short.
Yeah.
But there's been a few which, for example, very clear support needs in a wheelchair, peg tube feeding, personal care requirements at home with family, going from 160,000 down to 80,000. That's half.
Yeah.
For example, it's a massive impact. So in that case, they have to do a review. But, the review might not come back in time. We've had people waiting on equipment. This same man actually has been off service because he's waiting on a wheelchair. And they lodged occupational therapist reports for it, which is the evidence the NDIS wants, and it's just taking ages, 6 months waiting for a wheelchair. It's affecting his community access because his posture is incorrect.
Mm.
So issues waiting for equipment is not a problem.
Yeah. So it's all like to do with like administration roles, really.
Administration is a problem. Timeframes are a problem. It seems from my experience anyway. And then just their decisions are often different to what the reality is.
Yeah.
They're looking at documentation. They're not looking at the person. So the people who meet with us, they see the people, and they might have compassion and understand what is needed. But then the NDIS planners, from what I understand, are going off policy. There's restrictions around what they can give and what they can't give.
Yeah.
And they're reading a piece of paper as opposed to getting a whole
It's whatever's written in the paper.
Yes, they can interpret it how they interpret it, and they don't always have experience in disability, like they're coming from maybe accounts backgrounds. So it just depends. Some planners find a way to give what is needed, other planners do not. And they just say, this is if I cut here and this is all we can give here, and
Do you find the middleman an issue most of the time, or is it just that?
They're not an issue. I guess it's not. I mean, as in, it can be.
Like obviously, you said a DIS planner is kind of better than the United Care. Do you think out resourcing has become an issue, or is it?
I guess it is an issue, but not probably in the way you're thinking. Like an NDIS planner, when I have had them, can still give. Like if I meet with a planner, the end result can still be an insufficient one if I met with an LAC. So the outcome can still be the same because of their lack of experience, their lack of social communication skills. I've had a carer walk out because the interpersonal skills of the planner was so poor. The carer was feeling uncomfortable and wasn't listened to and things like that. So even the planner can be a negative outcome as well. But the middleman in general is frustrating because that role is frustrating because the parent, the carer, the person, participant isn't able to speak face to face, so there's less faith, I think, in what the outcome is going to be because they don't get to tell their story, the person making the decisions. So it's an emotional impact, that role, and then logistically going through a middleman can be difficult because there's no, they don't have any power. They tell you, that they can't contact the planner themselves either. There's no two-way communication. It's one-way communication. If you call the NDIS toll-free number. It's a call centre. They can't do anything. They will send off emails and that's it. If you go into an NDIS office, again, they'll take information. They won't give you any answers. There's no direct contact, no two-way street. It's just a waiting game. Okay. Yes. So that middle person, that middleman, is part of that story. It's part of that difficulty because again, you're telling someone and they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll get back to you," but they don't get an answer either.
Yeah. It's just like a hand off to one another, and it just goes in a circle.
Yeah, and I guess because they've got a lot of people to go through the NDIS, obviously they have their priority system.
Yeah.
But everyone's important, like general human beings, and their supports are needed to carry on life. So it's just, it's not an easy system, I guess, to administer and implement, but there's certainly flaws.
Just want to confirm, so when someone has an NDIS, they choose, they get the funding and they choose where to go basically. So you guys don't get the funding anymore.
No.
Because I remember it's block funding, you get the money and...
Yeah, so the difference is they still had choice back then because they could still choose where to go and send their block funding. But now the funding either sits with the NDIS and then we invoice the NDIS directly every fortnight and get paid. The other option is that there is a middleman called a plan manager. And then, for example, if someone was accessing here who had plan managed funding, I'd invoice the plan manager would invoice NDIS and then pay us. So the reason they do that is because it gives them flexibility to use non-registered providers because to go with the NDIS you have to be registered, which is required. So if you've got a plan manager, you can use unregistered providers. And then self-managed, where the actual participant family member, you invoice them directly, then they invoice the NDIS. Or no, they lodge it on the portal. Yeah. And then they get paid and they pay us. Again, they can use unregistered providers.
So just to confirm, so the family, they meet with like the planner? No, with the,
Local area coordinator is the most common, which is the middleman person. Yeah. Otherwise, some of them get to meet with the planners. It depends on the complexity of the person's needs.
So the planner meets with the client face to face, and then above that, who coordinates?
If they're meeting with a planner, the planner will do so much, and then there's still someone above them that authorises it, which I'm not sure what their title is, but I believe there's still someone else that has to sign off on it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations to improve NDIS? I know you said a lot before, but is there any a few points?
Well, they keep some consistency is important. So I don't know how they're going to do it when they have a range of workers, but being told different policies or different ways of doing things and just different, like I don't know how they do it back there because I haven't seen it, but a way to be able to give consistent allocate consistent and effective funding. Even if we don't obviously we always want funding maybe a bit more than what they can give, for example, because the parents and families might be asking for a bit more, but even as clear as day, like someone who is, in my mind, maybe only to put it as moderate level of disability and needs, like there might be staff ratio 1:3, and they have two parents, not single parents. They might have siblings, and they get, for example, 130,000, which is enabling them to have 5-6 days a week of service, morning pickups, afternoon pickups, all these things. And then someone else who's maybe a single parent, and that person's needs are higher because they have behaviours, and they get 60,000. There has to be a clearer way for families. If there's something that's missing that they need or want, a requirement, to make it clear about what they need and to be able to give that, they have to be clearer about it, because all they ask for assessments, but occupational assessment, speech therapy assessment, behaviour assessment, they can be received and there's still inconsistencies. So to find a way to be able to give consistencies is and that could be staff training for the planners, or just clearer requirements so everyone has the same benchmark. But that seems to be the case now. Most people, it's pretty clear. Give assessments, give reports. You need to have a doctor's letter to clarify your diagnosis. It seems to be behind the scenes, which the consistency is lacking. So to find that consistency would be great, because even if it's a lower amount, at least if you see consistency, it makes more sense. Yeah. You can just advocate, but when you're seeing different outcomes, it's very frustrating. And then for them to find a quicker way to look at reviews. So even if the outcome is a negative outcome, the carer can at least be informed of its progress They also they're not very proactive. So this year the NDIS needed all family members or carers, say parents, whoever the main person is, to be a nominee officially and had to put some 100 points of ID, a form, which again is fine, not a problem. However, they didn't tell everybody, like people at the beginning of the year had meetings and were doing their plans, and then or doing a review, and nothing was said, and then all of a sudden around April they started asking everyone to be nominees. So people before April, for example, had a lot of reviews, and the reviews weren't even looked at because the nominee paperwork wasn't done, because like, well, you didn't tell us to do the nominee paperwork. So tell us what we need to do, we'll do it, and then give us a timely outcome. So, and I think it's because they're always changing, not always, but there are big changes in the policies. So, and look, I'm sure there's all reasons for this. It's probably sounding a bit negative. There's all reasons for this behind the scenes, but we don't know those reasons. We can only see how it's affecting our people. And when you're seeing the worry from the parents' faces because they have no certainty, it's just the people staying at home and not COVID because they're staying at home. What can you do? You have to just you're focusing on those things, obviously. So the good thing that NDIS has done is provide more therapy intervention. That's definitely more than what it was before, that's for sure. With that, it's also, in saying that, it provides a benchmark. Like the price guide of the NDIS is standard if you're registered. So if you're registered, you have a price guide that you can't go above. A therapist rate is $190 an hour. So a therapist is going to charge that. So it's given people almost the authority to charge a lot of money for therapies which before weren't costing that much. But the intervention is good for them. They didn't have that before. Again, equipment when it comes through is good. They pay for incontinence aids and other consumables and things like that. And they do have more, so a lot of them have more services than they used to, like maybe a Saturday program or more overnight respite. But they do have quite strict guidelines, I feel, because for example, overnight respite, so they call it short-term accommodation, and even now, especially in the beginning, but even now, they're still very rigid in saying we only give 28 days of overnight respite. That's the limit. That's all someone with disability needs and deserves, and which for some of our families, they were getting 50 nights before the NDIS because that's what they need to continue their informal supports to keep caring for that person. But now the NDIS thinks only 28 days is necessary. So for everybody, it's a struggle to think that they're being given that. In saying that, the categories of the NDIS plan, they're quite rigid. So you have categories just for therapies, for example, categories for transport. Remind me about transport. I'll talk about transport in a second. That's a problem. And then there's a category at the bottom called core supports. So core supports is where most of the funding goes. Day program, accommodation, stuff like that. So the good thing is that that's flexible. So if someone's given respite for 28 days, but they don't use it all, they can use it for extra day program services or weekend services. So that's a good thing. There is flexibility in one of the biggest categories. With accommodation, one good thing is that we have found the accommodation process loosen up a little bit. Before, in the old funding-wise, you used to call aging, disability and home care, the state government, and they, urgent need accommodation, group homes, and you'd be put on a list, this non-existent list, and they would meet every 2 months or something like that, the panel, and decide where the vacancies were, and that's how the process was. But very hard to get accommodation. Now, the process is different because the power is back in the person's hands. So if they want accommodation, if they get assessments up to date, if they find a provider that has a vacancy that will take them on, and then they go and talk to the NDIS, if they have a vacancy and a provider saying, yes, we will give you a group home, the chances are you'll get that group home. So it's reversed a little bit. You're getting if you get a spot, generally we've seen people get funding. Before it was a bit harder, it was just a different process. But now it's a bit more, you go out, you find yourself a spot, and more are funded for you. So it's, instead of before, that was these are the spots who we have given to, there seems to be more accommodation packages than there was, so that's a good thing. But the transport, so they give a transport allowance, it's called, and it's about $2,700 for a year, and that's the same level as the Centrelink mobility allowance is what it used to be called, and it's to go towards a person's travel in the community, whether it's taxis, mum and dad driving you around, whatever. So the NDIS will give that for most people. The issue is they don't, for some reason, recognise that people can't travel with taxis all the time, and that's not a lot of money to go towards paid transport support. So I guess it's just for some reason this massive gap where families who work or can't drive, things like that, they can't transport their kids. They ask services to transport them, but that costs a lot of money. It can be $12,000, $15,000, $8,000, a lot more than the $2,700 which is given. And for some reason they just don't acknowledge that is a need. It's a massive gap in the funding. They feel like it's not reasonable for, I suppose, the government funding to pay for all these transport services. But the reality is, no worries, I'll run the counts.
I think that's about it.
Last question. So with the NPIs, would you say that they need like more patient-centered care, so like involve the consumers in like developing policies and whatnot?
Yeah, I don't know how much they do now. I'm not sure, to be honest, because there's a whole complaints process, but I don't know how much that's taken on because I haven't seen a lot of change.
Yeah.
There is still constantly, little things being posted on the website quite regularly, every few days, but personally I haven't seen a lot of change in regards to those problems in the last 6 to 12 months. So, there's these, or even longer than that, so the big problems that don't seem to be getting solved.
Yeah.
They might appear to be making little adjustments and new things and stuff like that, but for me, the time that the reviews are taking, the transport issue, people running out of funding and reviews, these are big problems, and I haven't seen any solutions to them.
Yeah.
That's a lot of information.
Yeah.
That's really useful. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's about it.
Okay.
You have to
that's alright. That works. So you guys have used that to develop, just doing other things like this until the end.